It's not like Trudeau was like, yes, we're going to bring in 100,000 Indians and they're going to work for Uber Eats and they're going to be my voters. If I moved to China and there was an enclave of Canadians in China, I know who I'd be hanging out with. You don't care about your own people enough for you to wish for their future existence. That oat group preference is an evolutionary anomaly only leftist whites have. I don't have oat group preference. I have Canadian culture preference. I don't. This is where, look, the pro versus anti-immigration, horrible categories. Those are nonsense categories. Less immigration versus more immigration, or a positive attitude towards immigration versus a negative attitude towards immigration is probably the better dichotomy here, the better spectrum to discuss this in. And when I say I'm pro-immigration, it's kind of a symptom of how distrustful and sick Western society has become. You automatically think I mean open borders. I don't mean open borders. I mean that we bring in small amounts of the world's most skilled workers from all over the world. Doctors, engineers, people who fill gaps in the skilled labor market. And there are so many gaps in the skilled labor market. People who fill those gaps, and when they come here, they become Canadian. They're not Nigerians in Canada. They're not Indians in Canada. They're Canadians now, okay? Of course, traditions, cultural traditions, the rich tapestry that makes up your life, that's great. I love ethnic food. I love ethnic culture, music, everything, architecture, everything about it. It's nice. But like those things get practiced in the context of being Canadian. And Canada is an idea. Canada is not it's not in the same way French is like an ethnic nationality. Like if you are a French, if you're a Frank, if you were born in France and you're a French person, like that's a category that's impossible to dispute. Same thing if you're ethnically German, okay? If you're ethnically German, born in Germany, speaking German traditions, parts of the country, parts of those traditions of which are thousands of years old. That's a category. That is a thing you are. When you're Canadian, you are playing by the rules of the country. You are not a ethnicity. You are following a set of a concept. You exist within a concept. That's what America is, and that's what Canada is. It's constitutional. It's democracy. It's free markets, and immigrants fit into that process well when it's done correctly. To say that, okay, because immigration has gotten out of control, admittedly, in both countries, in the U.S. it's illegal immigration, and in Canada it's legal immigration and temporary foreign workers, student visas. Totally out of control, and they're unskilled workers. It's unskilled labor that we're bringing in. They're competing for unskilled labor jobs, fast food, clerks, cashiers, security, roofing, stuff like that. They're competing with the lowest class of Canadians. I mean, class economically, the lowest economic class of Canadians for a small pool of unskilled labor jobs that exist. We've done it wrong, but like that doesn't mean I'm anti-immigration. I don't mean like everyone should be anti-immigration because we're now getting it wrong. We can go back to doing it right again. There's a way to do this. So you want the elite of your own group to have to compete with people from other countries with their different allegiances, making up a new elite and acting against the masses' interests. No, Canada is a nation made up of French and British people and some Europeans. These are all nations from the same civilization. I agree, India has their own civilization. And Indians come here, they should be Canadian. But, when we got here, we came from a monarchy. We fled here to escape systems that were not working for us in Europeans' home countries. Okay, French, British, yes, but also Irish. The British didn't like the Irish. It's when you get into what is I understand the argument you're kind of poking at is Canada's a white country, and fair enough. But when you get into that argument, when you start trying to find the category, what is a white person? That category collapses. It's completely nebulous because the British at one point would not have seen Irish as equal to them. When the Italians mass immigrated to the United States, no one saw Italians as equal. They saw Italians as a different race. They didn't see them as white people. Same thing with Spanish people, Portuguese, Greek is Istanbul. Is that white? Okay. Belarus, Russia, is Russia white? Okay, what do you Kazakhstan? Like, it gets nebulous, and there's a shared set of values that like makes the country run, and every race fits into that shared set of values. A Nigerian can come over here and be Canadian. It's not an ethnicity. Being Canadian is not an ethnicity. And the fact that Canada is an idea and not an ethnicity is what makes the country work. It's the same thing with what makes America work. And we should keep it that way. Nick Fuentes says America should be a white-only nation, and yet he thinks he fits into his own definition of white. Yeah, he's half Mexican. Are Jews white? You know? Native Americans from North America look very white. A white person is a European. It's not completely nebulous. It's European culture, yes, but it's still like, I guess, Christianity? I understand what you mean. Like, I know, like, I agree with what you're saying culturally, right? There's obviously, you can't take someone from rural Iran, like a fundamentalist Shia Muslim from rural Iran, and just plop them in Toronto and expect them to do well. That's not how that would work. But people, again, if people want to come here and work hard once they get here and provide value to the economy and assimilate to our cultural norms, everyone should be welcome to do that, regardless of what race they are. I think it's a category error, and it's not what the country is founded on. And also, immigration was consistent in Canada for 4 decades, and it's only recently that it's become a huge problem. For the last 4 decades, things were working well, increasingly so. GDP kept going up. There was a point where the Canadian dollar was worth more than the American dollar. It's only recently this has gotten bad, but like there was no point where like immigration has only gotten out of control in the last 4 years. From the mid 80s until 2020, immigration was the exact same, and the only people who complained about it were like racists who want Canada to be a white country and who don't like people based on the basis of race or like bigotry or xenophobia. The critiques people have of immigration now are super valid because it's like, yeah, we have too many Indians. It's like I've laid this out. My video on it lays it out perfectly. We've fucked it up in a unique and specific way, all out of negligence. But we can go back to like 2016 levels and it'd be fine. And we're still high immigration. We've always been really high immigration. Have you been to Toronto? It's like insane. Toronto's like Toronto has been such a multicultural city for so long. You act as if 50 years of third world immigration trumps 400 years. Yeah, but like, what point are people pointing to when the country was pure and beautiful because it was mostly white? At what point did things like run super well? Like when is this under the sort of the concept of mega, where like you're harking back to this like maybe not imagined, but like this point in the past that we need to go back to because it was so good. What is that point, and what defines that point? Yeah, you don't have to be anti-immigration to understand the flaws of mass immigration. Exactly. I'm not taking like a hard stance on it. I'm not going to be like, oh, therefore we have to go because, for example, London have 1,200 acid attacks per year. Yeah, I know, that's fucked up. I'm not like, ask anybody who knew me during the Syrian refugee crisis. I was against that from day one. I got in a lot of trouble with my friends and family and in school for being against mass immigration from the Middle East during the Syrian refugee crisis because it didn't work out well. Those cultures conflict, and you can't take in. What is it? Wait, European. I gotta find a chart here. Syrian funded by country. Jesus Christ, 3-year growth of Syrian asylum applications in Europe. Yeah, 1 million in 1 month. Or total. Sorry, that's total. My bad. Poland, Syria. Top 10 origins first time in thousands, 400,000 Syrians. Again, it's mass, like the issue, we're talking about the same issue, and we have the same critique. It's mass immigration from single countries of unskilled labor, of unskilled work that clash with our culture, right? There's a specific problem that can be solved. We avoid that situation. We have to avoid that one situation. You cannot bring in, Canada should not have brought in hundreds of thousands of Indians who unskilled and who are just going to congregate with themselves. If I moved to Germany, if I moved to China and there was an enclave of Canadians in China, I know who I'd be hanging out with. I would have no incentive to go to Beijing. I would have no incentive to assimilate. I would have no incentive to pick up Chinese culture. I would go to the Chinese equivalent of Brampton, of Canadian Brampton, with all the Canadians and hang out with them. Yeah, Europe's tougher. I think I don't really have any. Like, I'm not European. I don't have arguments for that. It's tougher when it's like Germany's a white country, right? England is it's an English country. There's like an ethnic nationalism that you can actually hark back to because it is specifically there's an ethnic group from that country. In the same way, every country in Africa has I guess thousands of ethnic groups in Africa, but I don't think of a better example. Give me like a better, like, I don't know, like Lebanon. I guess Europe. I don't know, because even like the ethnic boundaries within countries are pretty wild. Because, like, I mean, Syria has their issue with the Kurds. I don't know. It's fascinating. Iceland is an ethnically. There we go. Iceland's like an ethnically pure country. Like, Scandinavian countries don't really have weird. Because Africa's not a good example because those are like colonial borders and there's like so many different ethnic groups in countries within Africa and they war all the time. Is it like UAE style brown people exploitation mill? Probably more a good mix of both. I think the UAE, yeah, like we have definitely built an underclass of immigrant labor in this country, but it's been done so by the private sector. It has not been done on any like national attempt to do it. And the outcome is accidental. This outcome, it comes from, I said this in my video, it comes from negligence. It comes from negligence. It doesn't come from like a concerted effort. It's not like Trudeau was like, yes, we're going to bring in 100,000 Indians. They're going to work for Uber Eats and they're going to be my voters. It's not like that ever happened. It's not like there's no evidence that ever happened. It's just we had loose immigration laws. There's an incentive for companies to bring in cheap labor and also make their money collecting immigration consulting fees. There's an incentive for universities and private colleges to collect tuition fees from international students. It all makes like perfect sense why it happened. There's no gray area on why it happened. Everything's incentive. Everything happens because of incentive and lack thereof. If the incentive is there to do something, people will do it. Everyone wants to make a quick buck. It's not complicated. There is no conspiracy. It makes perfect sense when you look at it like that.